Hello, hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
Excellent. Let me turn on some more light so I look a little bit more respectable. That'll do. And we'll get started in a minute. Hey, Daniel.
Hi. I cannot join the chat.
Yeah, no, Jabber is down, so...
You're right, okay. I think we can deal with that. Do you want to show the slides, or do you want me to show the slides?
I'm happy to show the slides. I can pop them up right now. And there we are. All right, welcome everybody to the virtual video conferencing technology. Everything is fine. Bangkok 2020 IETF meeting. As you are very well aware by now, I am sure, we operate under the note well, note it well, all that. It tells you how to behave and how not to behave, and so do that and don't do that as appropriate. If you have any questions, please do ask. I know I'm being very flippant about it, but it is really important that we have guide rails around how we behave and that we all behave very well. I just told people that discussion is very respectful in this working group and they should come here rather than some of the others. So you're in the right place. Well done. With that said, this is the agenda that I put together based on what it looks like our work is from the queue of documents we have. If anyone has any changes, amendments to make to this, please speak up in the next couple of minutes. Otherwise, we'll get going. Mike? No? Yes? Just speak.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's marvelous. Have you got my slides? And can you drive them? I'm not...
Absolutely. They're right here, and we'll switch to them when we get to them.
Oh, yeah. They were there a moment ago, and they've gone away again.
Yep.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I thought...
Yeah. So I'll switch to them when we're ready to go with them.
So great. Okay.
So yours are at the end, according to this list. So I'm happy to shuffle things around if people would like.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to spend that long on the submitted documents. Just wanted to quickly talk about where we're at with them. Now, I didn't actually bring that up, which I probably should have, but that's okay. I can easily just go to the documents view. That's all right.
Yep.
So if we glance here at these documents, we can see Event Pub is the first one. It's been waiting a while. And Barry, what have we got here?
Yeah, I just, the changes in the security considerations look pretty good. I just sent a response about an hour ago or 2 hours ago, or I don't know, something like that. The times are weird right now, to Michael. So my discuss is almost ready to clear. And I pinged Ben Kaduk asking him to have a look at the version 16. So
cool. As I guess a more general topic, I'd like to avoid winding up in this kind of situation again. Is there anything we could be doing as chairs to progress things faster through this stage?
Well, the delays have mostly been getting responses back and forth. It's taken Michael a while to respond, and then it takes the ADs a while to respond, and and then when you go back and forth. So I guess what I would suggest is that the document shepherd needs to be a shepherd and start running around in circles and barking when things don't happen quickly enough.
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing that, Daniel, since this one's your one.
Yeah.
Show us your best dog impression.
I believe that one of the issue we have is that when the AD is providing comments, I mean, we should try to respond, let's say in the 2-3 days. Otherwise, the AD is switching context, and then it takes a lot of time to bring it back.
Yeah.
So I guess in the case of Ben now, it's a little bit, we're a little bit in that situation. Is it has to, and then to switch context, and that's that takes a lot of time. So
Yes.
so
Well,
the more reactive we are, the better it is.
correct. And he's been particularly busy in recent months as well. So some of us other ADs have picked up some of his documents to move forward so that his working groups wouldn't languish while he tried to sift through everything. So it's, there's no one person is causing the delays. It's just as different people get involved, the delays mushroom, and having somebody actively chasing that down and saying, hey, it's been a couple of weeks and there's been no response to this. Can you go check again? Can you give a response?
Yeah. I'm as guilty of this as anybody else. I've noticed in some of the other documents. Yeah.
We all are.
I have the impression, is that the document that went out of the documents list, or?
That was the relations draft, I think.
Oh, the relations. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and I think I'm as responsible as anybody else. I guess a little bit of, oddly enough, even though I've had a few standards go through the process. It wasn't absolutely clear in my own mind. I should look at the outstanding stuff in the data tracker. I was sort of relying on the mailing list more than the data tracker, and perhaps a pointer back into that to remind people to check it and see what's outstanding.
Right.
That might be useful, is to have some automatic thing from the data tracker that says, hey, this stuff is still hanging around.
So we've actually talked about that with the tools team, and it's questionable how some of us would love to have the data tracker send us reminders that, hey, this has been hanging out and nothing's happened. Other people get very irritated when the data tracker starts automatically reminding them of things. It's kind of, but we are working with the tools team on coming up with a good answer for this, and having some flag in the data tracker for who has the action, whether the action is on the author or the AD or the working group or whatever.
But the alternative between the data tracker irritating you is having some individual irritating other people.
Yes.
Nobody loves chasing up their debtors, whether it's for work or for money.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Yeah. In any case, I think we're nearing the end of the event pub extensions.
I hope so.
Delays. So we should be able to get that done.
Excellent. I'm very glad. All right, so that answers that one. Next one is JS Calendar, which is similarly.
Well, so that one, I have it up in my browser, and I am ready to click the approve thing on it if that is the right thing to do right now. It looks ready to me. I think we're good. I just want to make sure that the document shepherd agrees.
Yeah, I think it's me, and yes.
Okay, then it is going into approved announcement to be sent as we speak.
Great. Awesome, thank you. Next is VAlarm extensions. I believe we're still waiting for IPR confirmation from Apple.
Yeah. So for the GS calendar, it means we need to wait for an ISG telechat.
Yep. So, but I mean, it's in progress. We don't need to wait for it. It will get scheduled now that Barry's clicked the button. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Whereas for VLARM extensions, we just have to wait.
Apple.
So I just clicked the button for JS Calendar, so you should see it going into the RFC editor queue by tomorrow.
Okay, so he passed the ISG telechat and
Yes.
he's in the RFC editor. Okay, good.
That's where it goes next. Yeah, the secretariat has to do their magic, and then it goes to the RFC editor.
Okay.
Cool. With VLARM extensions, are we basically at the mercy of Apple at this point? I mean, short of rewriting it from scratch, there's not much we can do, is there?
The question I had is, what if, for example, we don't have any IPR disclosure? Is there any way we can move that document forward?
Can we just strip the author's name and basically...
No, I was wondering what would be... Cyrus is going to provide them, I guess, at some point. Yeah. So, and it's not him. So, but I was wondering, because it's a common situation that, for example, author is not responsive. And so, we don't know what to do with this IPR. So that was mostly a question for Barry.
Find the tab that has the mute button. So there we go. All right. So what is the? Okay, I don't understand the issue. There are no IPR disclosures for that for VLARM extensions. Right.
No.
We asked Cyrus whether there were IPR disclosures, and Cyrus said, I'll have to check with Apple Legal, and Apple Legal have not responded yet.
Okay. Cyrus should not be checking with Apple Legal on that, so maybe you can ping him again. And the BCP 79 rules say that it's your personal knowledge. You don't need to go research it. If you don't have personal knowledge, you do not have a requirement under BCP 79. Okay. So
I suspect it's an Apple rule,
right,
internal
and that's
rule.
Entirely different. And if that's the case, then I don't know what to do. But you also, if Cyrus was an integral part of putting this document together, you can't just take his name off of it either. So
yeah, no.
Yeah, what's strange to me is Cyrus has authored several other iCalendar related drafts, and we never seem to have this issue with legal unless he'd started the process way earlier, and we were just never aware of the fact that it was going through Apple Legal.
Right.
I think the situation is.
Perhaps there is something that he's aware of that he's just checking on whether it meets the criteria for disclosure. So I don't know what the situation is, but I guess the thing is to just hound Cyrus mercilessly until he responds.
I think the situation has changed over time since he wrote those things.
Apple Legal have probably become more world-averse or something. Who knows?
No, I think in Wilfredo's time, they never bothered telling Apple.
That's the other way to do it, isn't it?
They just went ahead.
All right. So I guess there's an action on you then, Daniel, to follow up. Sorry, you're the sucker who appears to be shepherd for these.
Yeah. A week ago he didn't have it, so.
All right, cool. Our next slide is iCal Relations. This isn't Working Group Last Call. I'm the shepherd for this one. The last call's expired and I just didn't get around to dealing with it. This is it's my fault bit. Can anyone see any reason for me not to push the button straight after this and submit it?
What is
pop up
today?
now.
What is the end of the day?
Well, it's the 19th of November, but the last call was well over a month ago, and no one said anything. So I've still got 4 hours, 3 3/4 hours left in my day, which is more than enough time. I'm hearing 0 objections, and given that there were no objections on the mailing list either, I will just do the thing.
Great.
That sounds quite delightful, and I will have something to read tomorrow, I guess.
Awesome. J calendar, I calendar. I don't have any slides for this one, but it was mostly Mike working with Robert on making sure that it was complete and accurate. What's left there?
Well, it's like, I guess a lot of it is down to me at the moment. There was the issue over handling the recurrence ID in standalone recurrence instances, and Neil came up with a suggestion, which I guess I don't think I responded to actually. But I think it'll work. Unfortunately, I got a bit bogged down on a sort of a side issue, nothing to do with JS Calendar and iCalendar. I got bogged down in trying to upgrade my iCal for J library, so I got bogged down with that particular issue, and I'm about to pick up on this stuff again. I don't think there's anything huge outstanding. I'm hoping that it'll be relatively plain sailing to work through. I've done all the JS Calendar iCalendar conversion. I was working on the iCalendar to JS Calendar conversion, and just steadily working my way through the draft as I was actually implementing as I went along. So hopefully in a few weeks it'll be wrapped up. Hopefully less than a few weeks. See how it goes.
Okay, so when I guess the plan is when you review the document and you agree, we should start a working group last call.
There are some changes
and then
pending.
Okay.
Is
that was me. Sorry to interrupt, Daniel.
Yeah,
yes,
go
so
ahead.
there's some changes still pending also from my side. First of all, the spec still includes the old definition of the fractional iCalendar parameter that we want to introduce. I need to change that to the new format that we discussed on the mailing list. Also, I think we should wait until also we have verified the JS Calendar to iCalendar translation. For example, I'm not sure we are covering the preservation of IDs yet, probably, but that's something we might need to add for JMap calendars spec then. So yeah, I also need to cross-check the spec with what we are currently doing at Fastmail. So a couple of weeks might be a bit too eager. Probably
Okay.
by the end of the year or January, I think is more realistic.
Yeah, it's likely
Okay.
to, in the end, much as I'd like to see it go faster, given that it, the very practical nature of it, it's worth having at least a couple of implementations that can successfully transfer in both directions, even if with only themselves. It'd be great to test across more than one service, if only between, say, beadwork and Fastmail.
Yeah. So it's sounding to me like we might be doing the working group last call for this one in the lead up to or at next IETF in March next year. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Or I
Right.
mean, what we can do also is have a long working group last call. So when when the specs are ready, and then we focus on the implementations.
Yeah, there's probably not much point doing it while we're still expecting churn, because we don't want too many people to review it before it's tested.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think there's any advantage doing a working group last call
Okay.
early and having it long.
Yeah, I've at least got it working with my own implementation in one direction, and you know, I ran into this issue going the other direction, and just doing it that way at least gets one thing working, and then we can try cross-server, and at that point there shouldn't be an enormous amount of churn. It'll be details that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, works for me.
Anything else to discuss on this, or should we move on to all the rest of Mike's drafts with these slides?
Yeah. Well, some of this covers some of what we've already gone, but if you can, yeah, we'll start with series. And not. I mean, I went back through some of the comments. There weren't as many comments as I thought there were, but it was mostly between Neil and Martin. But I think I'm going to have to make a few significant changes to the draft as a result, and adding some sort of master component rather than which actually makes a lot of sense, because then the generated instances will stand alone, and things that don't understand any of this will just completely ignore the master component, and all they'll see is a bunch of generated instances, which look like real events anyway, so that they should be fine. So I quite like that idea. It makes a lot of sense. The next slide. I think with the other part of the argument was about whether we should reuse R rule or S rule, and I'm leaning on having an S rule for a couple of reasons. While it does allow for some possibilities that while they're sort of complex in a way that you don't have to do that. And there's also the issue of having some extra parameters and things added to the S rule, which I think it just makes sense to have it as a separate property. It's not that much more complex, if at all more complex. It's a different property with a different name, but almost exactly the same semantics as R rule. So if you can process R rule, you can process S rule. It's just there's an extra few parameters that are legal. So I think I'll keep it as it stands.
I'm inclined to agree with that for the reason that it is always easier to combine two different things that behave the same than it is to disambiguate between two things that look the same but are different.
Yes, exactly. And I quite like Martin's. I hadn't thought of the issue of mixing recurrences and a series. That having a series of recurrences, actually, why not? If you want to have it, then and you understand the complexity, then go ahead and do it. And for things that don't even understand this, it's just another set of recurrences that happen to pop up regularly. So I think I'm sticking with that, and so mostly it's a matter of adding in the issues with the new components. So I need to add that, and I'll hopefully get a new draft out fairly soon with that in. Next slide.
Excellent.
Unless there's any comments. I mean, yeah, new draft soon, and now I've got my libraries updated. I'm hoping I can actually get it implemented.
Cool. I guess we probably want another implementation as well.
Oh yes, I don't want, but at least if I can get iCal for J updated. Anybody who's doing Java can use that. And
Yeah. Have you talked anyone else into having a go at it yet?
not yet. I guess that's something to start pushing on. Ken?
Certainly add whatever pieces are needed to libical. I don't know if we actually have any use case for it at Fastmail yet.
Yeah. It'd be nice
No,
to have support for it.
the problem with for many people is it's not easy to slip in my situation with the public event system. I can simply switch to using it and nobody will know the difference. It'll just make things probably run a little faster, and so I can certainly put it into use without it being an issue.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the challenge always is when does the series apply? When does it generate the new events? If the server's doing it, then it needs to have some rule to know when to trigger off a generation event and create
And
new
that's
records.
that's an
other
optional
clients
part of it as well. I mean, you can
Yeah.
do the same as you do with recurrences and generate the entire lot if it makes sense to do so. That was to cover some thoughts that Cyrus has had over the years, and certainly if you're booking resources as well through this, then not generating any further than than you can book in the resources makes sense. But yeah, there's a lot of business logic probably wrapped around
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, the business logic is going to be the tricky bit, the deciding when the generation runs and how frequently to check for it and all that kind of stuff. But that's fine. Cool.
Okay.
Should we move on?
Yep. Well, we've something did come up on the list in Event Pub, and most of the issues I think were is Julian who sent a fairly long message about various aspects of Event Pub, which mostly typographical errors of one kind or another. Can you move on to the next slide there? I think I can't remember myself where we were. So yeah, we've already dealt with this. Yeah, we're waiting for a response from the thing, and then that message from Dillian. And the question was, he had on the next slide is the relevant one, and he had some comment which I didn't think his comment was turn the structured data thing into a component, which didn't make a great deal of sense to me, but it did make me think that recasting the structured location as a vLocation component actually made a lot of sense, in that it dealt with some of the issues of the concerns about how you deal with things like the vCard reference. If it had a structured data property inside it, which referenced the vCard, there's a lot of history with this. What it was trying to avoid doing was essentially transporting all of the vCard properties into iCalendar. It just didn't make a lot of sense to do that. So one way to do that was to reference a vCard. Because way back when this all started, this started off as vVenue. It was just a reflection of vCard inside iCalendar. And that didn't make any real sense when you already have that object. At that time, we didn't have structured data as an idea. It was Cyrus who came up with that much later in the life of this whole draft. I inherited structured data from Cyrus, and it does make a lot of sense to turn location into a component, put structured data inside that, which could have the vCard ref as a data URI to avoid having to download it at that point in time. I hate to be churning the thing at this late stage, but I think it's what's happened is getting over this psychological blockage. Is that we always avoided creating new components.
Yep.
Having done so for participant, it makes it requires a bunch of changes to libraries which couldn't cope with multiple depths of components. But having got over that, it matches better to what we're doing with, say, JS Calendar for locations, where they are essentially a component rather than a property.
So what do we want to do? Like, this has already been submitted for publication. Do we pull it back and edit it and resubmit it again?
Well, I think that's feasible.
Sorry?
I don't see that as a big problem to change that. I mean, if we think it's a better approach,
I think I can do this fairly quickly. It's and probably within, what day is it today? Within a few days, I think I can get another draft out with this in it. It's you know, if I'd had structured data from the start, I think this is what I would. At the point where I decided to go with participant, I think I would have done this from that point. It makes such an obvious thing to do in the end. I think, and it's not just location; it's the other structured resources. Like the resource one, sorry, is the same kind of thing. A resource is often referenced as a vCard or whatever. What this allows you to do is to put multiple structured data if you want in there, which reference the thing in different ways. You know, here's an HTML rendering of the thing or whatever. So there's a lot of advantages to doing this, and I don't think I should pass it up.
Barry, what do you think?
Oh, we're talking about the event pub document here.
Yes.
Yep, the one that's been sitting for 400 days.
Yeah. You think that the changes you're talking about here are not going to require further review and consensus beyond what we already have?
I don't think they would.
Yeah.
That's my impression too.
Then, I mean, you're going to need another update to the draft anyway.
Yes.
So if you want to include these changes in that,
I think most of the other changes are. I mean, virtually all of them, I was addressing Dillian's comments. As I say, a lot of them were just typographical issues and consistency. So this was the only standout.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say when let's get this queued up, but wait for, respond to my response and make whatever change that you want to make for that. Wait for Ben's response, and then put out another revision of the ID, and let's see where that takes us.
Okay. I think
I would ask that you send a description of what you're going to do to the mailing list today, just so that people have a chance to see it. But I think otherwise it's fine.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I can do that ahead of time and say it'll essentially be a response to. I already sent a response to Dillian on his comments, but I left this sort of hanging, so I'll send another response saying what I'm thinking of doing with this particular point. Okay. Moving on then, I guess.
Cool.
Oh yeah, subscription upgrade. This I think is actually yeah. Just move to the next slide there. There's not much change. It really, I think, we've been through the thing, and I don't think any major issues have been raised other than what's the big advantage of this. And I think the big advantage, we were sort of highlighting the wrong advantage, and I never actually incorporated it into the text. The big advantage seems to be for mobile, in that if you can reduce the amount of traffic going on, network traffic, then that always improves battery life. And that I think is the big thing with this. I mean, if you've got two biggish devices talking to each other over a huge network, what's the difference? But when it's a mobile device, not downloading an entire multi-megabyte ICS thing so you can get about 1% of it seems to be a good deal. So I think that I just need to finish off the text and resubmit, and then we can go from there. And again, I'll try and get that done this coming week.
Cool. I think realistically, I should just call a working group last call on the new draft when it's uploaded. I think we're basically done.
I think so. I don't think there's any major issues with it. Okay.
Cool. Any further to that? Anyone want to object to the plan? Suggest a different plan? Nope. All right. VPOL is the final slide we have here.
And I think there's still issues with this draft as regards the IETF interactions. I made some fairly heavy changes to it to replace the. We had a vVoter component in there, which has been replaced with the participant component that's in the event pub draft, an extension to that. So this relies on the event pub thing going through. This is a much better approach because it's more compatible with where we're going with JS Calendar and things. So I think it'll make that easier in the future. And so we just need to look it over and fix up our implementations and make sure that things are work as well as we think they will. I've got implementation. Ken's going to try and get his going. I think at some point we want to try and test it all again, but I think it's much better. And we've had the IETF issues outstanding for a while. They need tidying up. Is make sure that's done.
Cool.
It's a big document,
right.
So it's quite a lot of work.
Yeah, this one doesn't sound like it's going to be done before mid next year.
I wouldn't think so. There's no no, it's not gonna. And I think we want to try and do a JS Calendar version of it anyway as well. So I think that's it on my part.
Cool. That's all that we have, other than reviewing our milestones. So, if we glance across at those, we were supposed to submit VAlarm, which is still waiting. I'm just going to note these down as we go through them. So, VAlarm hopefully to December. JS Calendar has been submitted, so nice, done. Scheduling controls is waiting on me, and I haven't done anything on it at all. I guess since we've got a few minutes to talk about that. The deal with this document is that it just adds a new header. Yeah, there you go. I've let it expire too. But the main thing was there's an options extension to say that we can do scheduling controls. And then given that, you can then say whether scheduling is all, none, internal, external only, etc. All this, it's probably a little bit more complex than we need. The main use case for this is to say scheduling none. And that's when you're importing data into a CalDAV server that's come from somewhere else, and you don't want scheduling messages to be sent out for it, even if it would normally schedule. We discussed this at CalConnect at Google a year and a half ago or so. They do something vaguely similar internally. Oh, great, my phone heard me say the magic G word. They do something similarly with their server internally. Yeah, it was recording my text.
It's your hotline, is it, or something with Google?
Yeah, don't you say it. That's right. I'm not on speakers.
Yeah,
I'm happy to just.
It's always great when I'm on a call with Alexei and my Echo thinks that I said Alexa.
Yeah, yeah. Look, at this stage, he basically needs to change his name. It's like if your name's Isis
Don't change your name to
Karen.
Siri.
To be honest, if your name's Karen, it's probably time to change it anyway these days. It's rough. I'm happy to refresh this again. I think there is some value in it. I just keep not getting around to it. But I don't know whether I should radically simplify it. I don't know whether we need to have the options response or whether we just say, try it and see. Another option is to... Sorry, yes?
I can't remember discussing this, but Apple has some unpublished draft for bulk upload. Does this have any relevance?
Yeah, bulk upload is a post to the collection, I think. And you can do that. You can do scheduling. Yeah, Ken probably knows more than I do.
Yeah, I was going to say that they would be compatible with one another. So yes, you could use Apple's bulk import and use this header so that as you're importing all the various events, you're not blasting out invitations that the user probably already has sent previously.
Now, there is an even simpler way to do this, which is the schedule reply header. We could just say that the schedule reply header applies to all scheduling, not just schedule reply. So if you set it to false, then the server should ignore it for all things, not just for replies. And that would mean that it works in the fallback case for a server that doesn't support any of this, at least for that case. So you wouldn't have to send two headers, but it would, for a server that does support suppressing scheduling, it would allow you to suppress it with that header, even for things where you're the organizer. But it doesn't give us much control as this document does, with its internal only, external only, all that magic that allows you to give more controls over scheduling. So I don't know. Any opinions one way or the other?
I don't have any opinions off the top of my head. I might have to think about it a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy with either or nothing, but we are using this internally within our CalDAV sync stuff at Fastmail. It's not it's not as it's written here. It's some other stuff that I wrote earlier, and this was to try and make it a bit more regularized. But obviously, we would use this if we standardized it.
You know who might be worth engaging in this is Hans Yoga, who does.
Yep.
Given that there's this big push in the EU to do allow people to import and export their data, I think standardizing that process makes a lot of sense, and it may not just be I mean, having something that makes sense with multiple protocols, or that at least the semantics are the same, makes sense. You want to pull it out of a CalDAV-aware thing and shove it into a JS calendar thing, JS map thing. It's going to
Yep.
be so it might be worth engaging Hans Yoga. That's
Cool. All right.
and it's partly his business as well, is moving data around in large amounts.
Yep.
So,
I will do that. Next on our actions list, sorry, just to pop back out of here. ICAL relations, we have a plan that's going to be submitted now. JS calendar, iCalendar, we've said March next year. iCalendar series, hopefully soon. So I can leave that for December that we submit it, because that's pretty much done. Subscription upgrade, we'll submit in December, that's pretty much done. Server-side subscriptions, so that was the other one of these. Mike, did you have...
I can't remember. Ken, I think we were trying to. We're
trying to sync this up with what we think Apple already has deployed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we and I think we're running into the same issues as anybody else. Apple aren't talking to anybody.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to bump that through to March. Hopefully we'll have it by next meeting. And VPOL we have pushed out to
June,
July.
July.
Yep.
And that's all our documents. Does anybody have any other business? I even have a slide for that purpose. I'm hearing a great deal of nothing, in which case we get to finish 12 minutes early. That's ridiculous. Well done. I guess see you all in 4 months in Prague. Gren.
Okay.
Bye, all.
See you, Barry.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate all your good work.
All right. Thank you. Bye then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.